What's going on, and welcome back to episode 2 of Watch Talk. Today we've got an absolute legend joining us. We've got Kash Dhanda from Jupiter, the cat herder and COO at Jupiter, which is, for those of you who don't know, the biggest DeFi super app on Solana. Jupiter routes over half of all Solana DEX volume and 95% of aggregator volume. He is the former Sherpa at Superteam, took it from 7 people to 200K plus at events across 16 different countries. He's an angel investor, an early advisor across the Solana ecosystem, and one of crypto's most followed operator voices. Kash, a big thank you for joining us today, and welcome aboard.
Thanks, brother. You flatter me. I don't know about most followed, but I do appreciate the sentiment.
You're most welcome, man. No problem at all. And of course, we also have the founders of Watch.fun, James and Kaben, joining. How are you guys doing today?
Good. Excited to be speaking to Kash.
Yep, excited to hear more about everything.
Fantastic. Well, without further ado, I guess we can pretty much jump straight in. Kash, tell us a little bit about yourself and who is Kash in one sentence?
Oh, in one sentence, Kash is a simple man. Is a simple man who does a lot of work, I guess is probably the easiest way to do it. I'm non-technical. My background's in postmodern political philosophy, is like what I studied in college, and that degree is about as useless as it sounds. And so I've spent my entire career just doing other random stuff, and most recently now I'm a cat herder at Jupiter.
Amazing. And what does cat herder actually mean? Because I've seen it a couple of times, but maybe you can give us a bit more context.
It doesn't really mean anything, which is good. Like my advice to young people in particular, but anyone who's kind of like in a startup, is to try to stay off the org chart as much as possible. So here, my title is cat herder. At Superteam, my title was Sherpa. The more weird your title is, it signals A, that you're kind of just down for whatever, and 2, it keeps you from being kind of stuck in a particular box. In fact, the only reason that I have COO as my title is I was doing some Russian media, because we had some partnerships out in that part of the world. And I told them my title was cat herder, and they did not know how to translate it. So they're like, hey, this doesn't translate to Russian. You have to tell us like something normal. And I was like, well, let's go with COO then and see how it goes.
Amazing. That makes sense. And then you went from advising Jupiter, Streamflow, as well as the Solana Foundation simultaneously, to then running Superteam, and then moving on to going full-time at Jupiter. Walk us through kind of your Web3 career process, and tell us a little bit more about how you went from there to where you are right now.
Yeah, for sure. So the order of operations was first started off as part of the founding team for Superteam, and I owe it all to my buddy Akshay BD and Thunmay for helping make that happen. Basically, I've been interested in the space since like 2016 or so, playing around in the markets and whatever else. And then in around 2021, I guess it was, I was up for a job as an entrepreneur in residence at a big bank here in Singapore, where I lived at the time. And one of my poker buddies was this guy, Akshay, who was already kind of a thing in crypto. And I was telling him about the opportunity, like, should we do this? Should we not? Or like, what do you think? And he basically grabbed me by the shoulders and was like, what the fuck are you thinking? Like, all we do is talk about crypto. Let's go do something fun in crypto. And he had this kind of podcast that him and this guy, Thunmay, were running at the time. And then we turned that and kind of wanted to turn that into Superteam, into this kind of like global talent layer for Solana. Started in India, started to scale up. As we scaled up, a lot of people laughed at us, obviously, because we were taking community very seriously and kind of treating community like a product rather than like a marketing tagline. And at the time, a lot of the community stuff was like, you just hire some random girl in the Philippines to moderate your Discord server for like $500 a month. And here we were like trying to build like a full team and like, really take it as seriously as any startup takes their own products. And that did not work for a little while. And then suddenly it clicked, and it did. And then the growth curve really went crazy. And a big shout out to Lily at the Solana Foundation and many others who kind of believed along the way. And then it was as that scaled and I met more founders and I got more kind of context in the space that I started advising projects, culminating with Jupiter for a little while. I was active in the Jupiter DAO for a bit. And then, Meow came to me and made an offer I couldn't refuse. So jumped over to Jupiter. And the initial scope, I think, was like basically to work on maybe like media kind of stuff, but it evolved into now I run a bunch of products here. In the past, I've done things like investor relations, as well as like marketing and comms and all the non-technical teams and this, that, the other thing. So it's a bit of a hodgepodge is how I've kind of gotten here, is the honest truth.
So basically cat herder.
Basically cat herder. Yeah. It's the most like precise title for what I actually do, which is like whatever the most urgent problem is that day. That's what I end up spending the whole day on.
Fantastic.
So Superteam is not actually a initial Solana initiative. It was started by you and somebody else. Oh, I did not know that. I always thought it was like Foundation came up with this idea and was like, okay, like this is going to be the evangelist program, kind of like Apple had an evangelist program. So you guys started completely on your own, and then Foundation just kind of adopted it, or is it actually separate from Foundation?
So it was separate from Foundation, for sure. The credit goes to Akshay, who I think at the time was advising the Solana Foundation and really took the idea of community seriously. And so it was kind of his initial spark that kind of kicked it off. But yeah, we were, a kind of independent nonprofit. The Solana Foundation was a key funding partner from the very beginning. But, even in the first year, I think we had maybe like 20 or 30 different funding partners. So protocols all around the ecosystem. If they needed distribution, if they wanted to hire, if they were hiring like whether contractors or full-time, we kind of worked with everybody. And the idea was to be this public good. And again, we worked closely with the Solana Foundation. But as we grew, that bond became tighter and tighter. We took the opinionated stance that it was like Solana only from the very beginning. But we were, struggling in the woods for a little bit before things really started to click. And thankfully, they had some patience. They gave some great advice. They made the right intros to kind of help make things happen.
Nice. So was it, it was set up for a nonprofit. When you set out to start this, did you have a plan to, it sounded like you were working in something else and decided to move into crypto because you guys kept talking about it. Was there a path to turn it into a business, or were you just like so passionate about it that you wanted to focus only on this?
In the early days, I spent a lot of time, Akshay and I both, like thinking about the token. So the idea was like, hey, we'll launch it as a DAO because DAOs were very hot at the time. And I was very interested in DAOs, political philosophy and all that. And so we spent a long time thinking about like, oh, how could the tokenomics work? And maybe we accumulate tokens from member projects and we turn into this like basket, almost like a VC fund, but we invest with time and energy rather than capital and all this other kind of stuff. And it very quickly became obvious that like, DAOs are extremely hard to make work. And so like that model wasn't going to really work. And we'd have more of an impact if we didn't have the kind of distraction of a token. And so instead we decided to stay as a nonprofit, do as much good work as we can, and not really try to monetize super directly.
That makes a lot of sense. Okay.
And I'd love to rewind a little bit. You mentioned that you were already dabbling in crypto before, and then you decided to take that step in 2016 when you were gonna go for a banking job. What did you do before that? What was like your experience before getting into Superteam and into crypto? And what was that pivoting point where you said, okay, I'm getting into that with Akshay?
Yeah, it was, so I think from 2018 to 2021, I was running APAC for like an innovation consulting firm. It was like a boutique firm called the Luma Institute. And basically I would just fly around APAC, like working with Fortune 500 companies and their executive teams to do like innovation strategy sessions and things of that nature. And then before that, I had run a few, one thing that you learn very quickly, like if you're studying postmodern political philosophy, there's not like a great job market for it. And so I kind of realized I'd have to like make my own jobs. So I started like kind of building companies when I was in college itself. Then I did like an agency for a little while. Then I did this, and I was just kind of like, hopping around from idea to idea, trying to find something that was like fun and could like really work. But at the time in my 20s in particular, I was much more focused on kind of like quality of life and traveling the world and making it just enough to be able to like fund the lifestyle that I wanted. And so a big part of the reason to like move into crypto full time was to take the big swing and to see if like, hey, we could really do something on like a global scale that would touch a lot of lives and kind of meaningfully contribute and kind of shape, a very small slice of history in a very small way, rather than just kind of doing things for myself. And that was the main kind of like motivator. And at the time, and I still do believe that, like, I think crypto is like one of the most important technological innovations that we've had in the last, 20, 30 years. And it just felt like the right time where things were finally like actually usable, right? When I got interested in crypto in like 2016, clearly it was useful. Like there was stuff you could do, ICOs were very cool and DEX pools and whatever else. But it was not particularly like usable, right? Like ETH was incredibly slow, incredibly expensive. A lot of other networks barely existed and had no kind of ecosystems whatsoever. And it was with Solana that it felt like, now things are kind of fast, cheap, usable. There's cool projects, there's cool things to do on chain. And that's when it kind of clicked. I was like, okay, this is the time to start to ride the wave where my skills, listen, I'm not like an engineering guy. I'm not like a technical innovator, but on the kind of product level, community level, kind of, comms marketing, those kind of levels I could really contribute. And it felt like it was the right time for me to be able to jump in.
Do you remember that exact moment where you decided like you're going to quit that job and you're going to get into Web3? What did that look like exactly?
It looked like a lot of very late night conversations with my wife, who was who worked at a bank at the time, who worked at JP Morgan, and understandably was a little confused, I will say, but ultimately very supportive. And it was honestly, it was a bit of a lark. It was like, hey, if this doesn't work out in 6 months, I can always go back and get a job at a bank or anywhere else. You know, like I was never really too concerned about job security. And so it was like, hey, worst case scenario is like a fun story that I tell my kids some days. And then best case scenario, I mean, basically what's happened now is the best case scenario. This is about it. It went about as well as I could have imagined, quite honestly, maybe better than I could have guessed.
Super good advice for all founders. Just do it. 6 months later, well, immediately don't quit in 6 months. I don't think you'll ever make it as a founder if you quit in 6 months, but always just take the shot, because if it doesn't work out, I mean, we've pivoted multiple times. You just have to keep moving. So
yeah.
Well, you definitely made your mark with Jupiter. You said you want to make a mark, and I think Jupiter has definitely done that between the airdrop and all the people who trade either for a living or otherwise. I would say you achieved that goal. So congrats.
Thanks, brother. Yeah, I think a lot of folks end up like trying to over optimize and kind of like over plan things. A lot of people are drawn to doing entrepreneurial work are like very type A and neurotic kind of, by disposition. And indeed, the advice is just like nothing you're doing really matters at all. If it does start to matter, you will know very clearly. Like, don't stress out. Like, try to do things that are actually like fun and natural towards you. And at that point, like with Superteam, it was working with the buddies, working on this like very weird kind of problem that no one else really seemed to be solving in a serious way, and kind of blazing a new path. And it was the work that felt like play, and that was like the real sign that it was the right place to be.
Hey, fun maxing as well.
Fun maxing, you get
That's fun maxing. Yeah. Before maxing was a term. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yes.
Oh man. Well, whilst we're on the topic of Superteam, Superteam obviously grew from literally 7 people in Slack to over 200,000 people at events across 16 countries. This was under your watch. What would you say is the moment for you that you are the most kind of genuinely proud of during your time with Superteam?
That is interesting. I don't know if there was a specific moment. Actually, there was probably one. There was at Breakpoint a few years ago. We threw a national dress ball party on this boat, and I think that was probably one of the peaks, because we had like 200 or 300 different people all wearing like the traditional outfits from their countries, getting very drunk and dancing very aggressively like on the dance floor. And at that moment, it really like felt as if like, okay, we've kind of made it. And we did a little roast actually as well of Solana from the stage there, me, Akshay, Tanmay, and I think Neil did it as well. And we were extremely nervous. We almost canceled it like 5 minutes before we went on stage. And then we got on stage, did the jokes, it crushed. And that was maybe one of the proudest moments. It was like, okay, we've really kind of made something very weird and unique here. And that was a pretty good feeling.
Wait, who told the jokes? Who did
me, Akshay, Tanmay, and I think Neil did as well. We actually ended up doing it the next year at Breakpoint from the main stage as well, and we didn't record it because like we said some very mean things. But yeah, it was. If you go check out Mert's tweets, Mert was in the audience at the time for the second one, the one we did at Breakpoint's main stage, and basically tweeted out half of the best jokes. And so you can see some of it there, but I will not repeat any of them because I'm not friends with them.
What year was this?
This would have been 2024, I guess. What year is it now? 26? Yeah.
So that was Singapore, right? 2024.
Yeah, I think it was Singapore. It must have been Singapore, yeah, because I opened that year with Lily as well, and then we did the roast later on.
Okay. I was gonna say, did the market crash after? Because whenever people start dancing in crypto, it's like the market always
dangerous times. Yeah. Those were most of our jokes, was making fun of how poor everyone was in the room, which was a lot of fun.
Oh my goodness. So you are based in Dubai now, correct?
I pay rent in Dubai, yeah.
Yes, you mentioned. Most Solana founders or people within the like big players within the Solana ecosystem are either in New York, London, San Francisco, etc. Why Dubai, and what does Dubai know about crypto that most people miss?
The reason for Dubai is actually completely unrelated to crypto, which is that my wife's family is from Dubai. So I've been going for like 15 years or so, and now we have a small child. And the way I work is like pretty intense. And so my wife's request And my own kind of opinion was that, hey, going to Dubai, the quality of life there, having the family there to like help support was really important. But once I got to Dubai, I was very surprised by the quality of the crypto scene. We had started Superteam UAE, I don't know, maybe 3 years ago. And so shout out to Alex Scott and the rest of the community over there. We had known that there was like some good bubblings and some really high quality folks were there. But once I got there, I really started to understand that, your size is not size until you've gone to Dubai. Let me tell you, like I learned that very quickly. And so the amount of capital that's there is really interesting. And the amount of kind of what I might call like experimental capital is very high there as well, right? Dubai itself is a very like new city, right? The city itself is only a few decades old. And a lot of the people that live there and a lot of the money that they've earned is also very new. And what you find is that people that have kind of fresh money or have made money in interesting and weird ways are more willing to experiment with that capital in interesting ways. And so there's an extremely active investor scene in Dubai where people are very willing to fund great projects all the time in ways that might have struggled to find funding outside of maybe like SF or London or something like that. And I think they understand the kind of importance of it from a regulatory perspective. So VARA, which is the regulatory authority there, has been extremely forward-looking. They were one of the first to have like a digital, what do they call it, virtual asset service provider kind of framework. And so they've really kind of cracked the code on how to grow and inculcate this like really high-quality crypto ecosystem. So given the amount of funding that's there, it's one of the places where there's the most Bitcoin farming, for example, or Bitcoin mining, excuse me. There's a lot of fundraising, there's a lot of technical ability there, and increasingly there's a lot of founders, because at the end of the day, it's hard to compete with a city that has basically zero crime, that has incredibly high quality of living and extremely low taxes. And so what you end up seeing is a lot of successful folks end up moving to Dubai for tax reasons. So you build up this really interesting network as a result of that.
100%.
Definitely. The size, not size thing for sure. I remember we went to UAE for
Abu Dhabi.
Oh yeah, Bitcoin. And we did a little excursion out in Dubai, and for fun, we're like, let's just rent Ferraris and just like see what this is all about. We were like planning to do it for content, but we're also like, let's just do it because we're gonna try to fund max and see what all this is like, and see how we kind of, what is this lifestyle that we want to be able to bring people, or at least at the time, that's kind of what we were more focused on. Now it's a little bit more about storytelling and the pieces themselves. And I remember we would park at like just normal restaurants, and people were like, hey, get your Ferrari, like move, like don't park here. You do that.
It's not a Bugatti. You don't deserve that front lane,
Yeah. It's what was it? It was a four.
I can't remember which one. I mean, even like the G-Class. G-Class is like the Toyota there.
Yeah.
Like you're in Thailand or anywhere in the world, you have a Toyota, and then in Dubai, it's just normal to have that type of car.
Yeah.
I will say it's a city with the best Ubers in the world, because they're all like Lexuses, so they're all super comfortable and very nice.
Yeah.
True. I definitely agree.
I wanted to ask, just whilst we're on the topic of Dubai, what would you say that there's like a time of the year where the weather is unbearable over there, where you just like have to not be in Dubai?
I will say the answer is yes, but this is maybe the most understood. This is the most misunderstood fact about Dubai right here, is that actually 6 months out of the year, there's no place with better weather in the world, I would argue. From like September to March, maybe that's like 7 months or so, it's just like, it's beautiful. It's like in Fahrenheit, it'd be like, I don't know, 70, 75 degrees during the day. And in the evening, you can be outside all day. It's super sunny. It's the best. With that caveat, I will say that the summers are like literally fatal in a sense that you cannot go outside. And so most people, including myself, kind of end up spending part of the summer outside. But if you are there, even during the summer, the real temperature of Dubai is like 22 degrees Celsius. Because you never really leave air conditioning, right? You're in your air conditioned house, you go to an air conditioned car, then you go to an air conditioned mall, air conditioned restaurant, etc. So, it's not as bad, I would say, as people make it sound.
Okay.
Unless just like biblical floods, which was what was happening when we were there.
Yeah, that was a very unfortunate timing, I will say. That gave a lot of people a very bad impression of Dubai. I think it's rained.
I mean, it was quite well managed, I would say, with the whole like flood situation.
I mean,
that's how quickly, how it flooded super quickly. Yes, everything was a mess, but if it happened anywhere else in the world, I don't think they would have cleaned up as quickly the next day.
For a desert, yes, but it was pretty wild. We were there. It was like post-apocalyptic when we were driving around.
That's true.
I was trapped in the Kapinski for like 3 days. Like I couldn't get a car to come up. Like we had to like wade across like fetid water to try to even like go get food. It's not great.
That's wild. Jeepers.
Pretty
Alrighty, well, Kash, we're going to move on and chat a little bit about Jupiter and start talking about watches as well. To start off with, pretend I am, I don't know, a 14-year-old watch enthusiast with zero crypto knowledge. What is Jupiter and why does it route more than half of all Solana volume? And why should I care?
Jupiter is the single best place to manage your assets, whatever those might be. You want to trade them, you want to earn yield on them, you just want to track your portfolio performance. Jupiter is the place to do it. We now do, I mean, last year we did $1.2 trillion in volume across all the different products, right? So we're certainly like the home base for traders. And on Jupiter, you can trade every single thing, commodities like uranium and copper, but also stocks, also every single token within a few milliseconds of it being created, and much, much more. So any asset that you would want, think of Jupiter as like an Amazon for assets. And I think that's like a pretty interesting and exciting place to be. The reason we do so much volume is that the product is just better. And all due respect to everyone else in the Solana ecosystem, I got a lot of friends out there, but nobody ships like Jupiter is the basic fact. So, we are checking simultaneously 2 million capital markets across Solana every like 7 or 8 milliseconds, basically, for updates that affect your pricing. That way, every time you trade, you get the best price. And now, critically, the reason we keep growing is that, okay, you get the assets, what can you do next with them? That's why we have a bunch of these yield products. We have a stablecoin spend card that works in like 80 or 90 different countries. We have like the best wallets in the game and everything else that you would need from start to finish. Anything you're doing on chain, you can use Jupiter to do so.
Amazing. I recently saw something about Pokemon cards and lending and borrowing NFTs and stuff as well. Am I on the right track here? I just want to make sure that I'm not speaking out of turn.
No, that is absolutely right. This is the cool, one of the cooler things that we've done in a little bit, I will say. Crypto, I think fundamentally is great for the long tail, right? You want to have like the smaller, weirder kind of assets that you can't really financialize in other fashions. So we launched a product called OfferBook recently, which is an order book-based lending protocol. And indeed, it enables you to take your Pokemon cards that are on chain, or maybe some other kind of objects that might be of interest to you, but I can't say too much about that right now. And you can actually use those as collateral to borrow against, right? So, I think we just did earlier today, like a $30,000 loan against a Charizard Pokemon card held with Fidgetals. And we're going to see a lot more of that kind of activity. As a lot more things get tokenized, you want them to not just be like interesting assets, but productive assets. And that means that you can either earn yield on them or borrow against them and then, use that to fund your lifestyle or, take leverage or do whatever else you might want to do. And that's the kind of thing that like you cannot imagine Wall Street ever doing, right? And that's one of the things that keeps me excited about crypto is like finding these kind of weird new things that enable people to find more value in the things that they already love.
For sure. That's an amazing answer. And it's I think it's so exciting to see where real world assets are starting to be understood by like most people who are in crypto now know what RWAs are and how they work and all of the possibilities that are unlocked by bringing these assets on chain and making them transferable and tradable and able to lend and borrow against them. I think it's fantastic, and it's great to see Jupiter at the forefront of that. Now, in the past, you've called Jupiter the most Web 2 team in Web 3. I believe it was. I don't remember exactly which podcast or whatever it was on.
I think it was Austin Federa called it that, yeah.
Yes, that's right. And what does that actually mean in practice? What's a decision that Jupiter's made that a normal DeFi protocol would never make?
I think Austin maybe meant that as a bit of a backhanded compliment potentially. But I think one thing that we do, because we're at the same time like extremely crypto native and extremely degen. But one thing that we do is we've grown largely through mergers and acquisitions. And M&A is like very common in Web 2, right? Like every major company has grown that way, like Facebook and Instagram and WhatsApp is like the classic example. But in crypto, you don't see a lot of that. And I think that's something that we've kind of brought from the traditional world over that, hey, actually, if you can find the right teams, if you can find the right products and figure out good ways to integrate them into what you already have, it can really be like a 1 + 1 = 3 kind of situation. And the truth is in crypto, there are so many dramatically undervalued companies because they launched a token too early. They raised too much funding and didn't actually have a venture style outcome ready for them. And they kind of are operating in this mode where they just need to be connected and plugged into a grander story and a grander product suite. A great example is Portfolio. We bought a company called Sonar Watch. Shout out to Guillaume and Oliver on that. Small team, 4 or 5 person team, very scrappy. And it was great. I don't know if you guys did you guys use Sonar Watch at all? Do you remember them a few years ago?
I didn't use it until it became Portfolio.
Yeah.
Now I use it.
Yeah.
Especially because it's gotten much better over the last few months. So
yeah, and credit to those guys for continuing to ship. But on their own, a portfolio tracker tool is unfortunately not a great business, right? There's not like a lot of money to be made. There's certainly not tens or hundreds of millions. But as part of the Jupyter product suite, where people are already buying assets, controlling them, earning yield on them, et cetera, it makes a lot of sense. And so that product went from like a few hundred users, per quarter, a few thousand users per quarter, to I think last quarter it had like 3 million wallets connect or something like that.
Wow.
So the scale that you can hit, if you find the right piece, which was like kind of this undiscovered gem, plug it into the infrastructure that we have, and then we can grow. And so that kind of insight is what has led us to do, I think, 8 or 9 different acquisitions over the last 2 years. And I think that's the kind of like part of the Web 2 energy that we might bring into crypto to grow with more traditional tactics in that sense.
And what was that initial, I guess, like kickstart to doing acquisitions? Was it like, were you part of it initially, or did you join Jupyter after when you actually started the acquisitions? And what did the conversations look like within Jupyter where like, hey, I think instead of us building it, let's actually just acquire these guys because of X, Y, Z. So just curious what the thought process was like in Jupyter when you were acquiring all these different companies.
A lot of the time, the question was like, is it faster for us to learn how to be the best in the world at this, or is it faster for us to just partner or buy the best person in the world at this? And that's kind of like driven a lot of the motivations of like where the acquisitions have come from. I don't doubt our engineers could have figured out the portfolio stuff over time, but no one has spent as much time as Guillaume and Oliver thinking very deeply about how to track different protocols across the ecosystem. They know them intimately, right? Every in and out. And there's so much peculiarity, right? I think nowadays we track like 350 different protocols or something like that. And so it just would take us much too long. And we really like those guys and we think they're very talented. And so that one just like made a lot of sense. I think one of the first ones we did was actually like Ultimate Wallet, which was like a very small wallet in Germany. I believe they were based. They were Superteam members over there. And again, it was like that was the basis for what became Jupyter Mobile, which is now one of the most used crypto wallets on Solana. And it was again just like, hey, they already have the mobile expertise. They understand the usage patterns in a way that might be a little bit alien to us as kind of a web first company at the time. So let's bring them on and see what we can do.
Building off of this, something that impresses me the most, I mean, I'm a Jupe bag holder, is how quickly you guys ship. Like, I mean, in the Solana ecosystem, I don't think anybody ships as much as you guys, especially at the breadth that you guys do, right? Like you guys are the only true super app, to my knowledge, in the Solana ecosystem. We're game devs. We were building a lot of Web3 games before we got here, and then also some traditional games. And managing big teams, which I mean, what we managed was a lot smaller than what you guys did, all towards one single app is incredibly difficult. Right? You've got game designers and game artists and all this kind of stuff, and you guys now have actually probably different technical teams working on different products. How do you guys actually, like, I don't mean talking from a technical perspective of how you keep all your code in line with different teams working on different stuff, but how do you guys coordinate all these people to actually launch a super app? Because it's, at the end of the day, a lot of these products touch. Like if you launch something in swaps, it kind of has to get represented on the wallet or on mobile. It just sounds like I get stressed thinking about how you guys have to probably manage all this. And I noticed we were at Kash Dhanda as well. I feel like, I could be wrong about this, but I feel like you guys announced a lot of people that I don't recognize. And so maybe you guys did some like hires for more traditional Web 2, like C-suite or exec. Did that help or?
Yeah, I mean, the team has grown like crazy. So when I joined, I think there was maybe like 40-ish, 45 people. And I think today we're sitting here at about 150 or so. So in the last like year and a half, we've more than tripled in size. And indeed, like the managing that complexity is incredibly hard. I can promise you that the sausage is like very ugly from the inside. It is far from smooth, far from like well coordinated. It can oftentimes feel like chaos. But the thing that we have that I think a lot of other teams don't have is an abundance of founders and CEOs in the company. At my last count of the 150, something like 15 to 20 of them were either founders or CEOs before they joined Jupyter. And so you have a lot of people that have that are very comfortable making hard decisions with limited data. We're very comfortable like leading small teams, oftentimes teams that they've been working with for a long time, and who are able to both think strategically, but also like execute at a very high degree. And so I think it ends up coming down a lot to the people and the talent, and then having like a relatively clear vision for each of the different products of where it's going to go. So, the role that I play, that Xiang plays, like helping to ensure that there's some clear vision on where we need to be able to go, and then on trusting the teams to be able to figure that out themselves. And a lot of the best ideas will just come up from individual team members, somewhat out of nowhere. Academy is like an educational product that we launched recently that Thomas on our team just said, hey, I think this is really important. We have so many goddamn products. I don't know how to use them all. If I don't know how to use them all, I'm sure there's other people that don't. Let's build something for it. It's like, yeah, let's go. Reward stuff is another example, right? So Joe and Young Jay just kind of like put that together because they thought it made sense. And so we have a lot of this kind of like bottoms up innovation that comes up rather than kind of just saying from the top, okay, this is what we're going to do, and this is what we're going to do, this is what we're going to do.
Yeah, I mean, you hear about that at other big companies too, but sometimes it doesn't always work, right? You get different founders, of course, it's great because they all have strong ownership, but strong ownership all within one org where they have to still get ideas approved by somebody else. So they launch, or maybe through BD or whatever they've got. You guys just launched the USDE, all that stuff. That still has to move into lending, and then so it still has to be part of the main product. One
thing that helps a lot, is that like the people know what they're getting into when you come to Jupiter. I think this is like an important cultural value that we've done a good job of kind of inculcating, which is you're going to come here and it's going to be the hardest thing you've ever done. This is not a place for like work-life balance. Like you are expected to be available 7 days a week. You are expected to be working, at least 6 days a week. And you're expected to like, if you have to be in the office from 9 a.m. until 1 a.m., that's what your day is going to look like. And it's obviously not a place for everybody as a result, right? And there's no shade at all to people that prefer work-life balance and all the rest of the stuff. But I think when you know that everyone else is all in with you and is just like full-time grinding, just the number of hours that you put in that's itself like a competitive advantage, right? If I'm working 100 hours a week and you're working 50 hours a week, and even if we're like roughly similar in quality, I'm getting done twice as much as you are. And so that intensity that we were able to bring to it helps a lot. And it honestly, intensity can cover up a lot of mistakes that might happen otherwise. We very regularly ship products that either break or don't work or are suboptimal, but we're not precious about it. And the thing, we ship very quickly, but we iterate even faster. And like, that's really the secret sauce, is push it out into the world, see how it goes. If it breaks, just be around to fix it rather than waiting for 2 weeks until the technical report comes in.
And then it seems like, they always say, don't have too many chefs in the kitchen. It seems like you guys do have a lot of chefs, as you said, they're CEOs and founders. So how do you guys prioritize or focus on what you guys need to do? I'm guessing there's a core pillar. There's the initial Jupiter product that always will come first, but then everything else is cooking around. So then how do you actually decide, okay, what's important now to push out, what's not, and how do you coordinate all that? Especially since you're sitting in the middle, right? If there's a fire in that kitchen, you're running over to that fire.
Yeah, it is not easy. I think our marketing team probably has the hardest job in all of crypto. So shout out to Alicia and the rest of the gang on that one, trying to keep up with like the frenetic pace. There are sometimes announcements that I don't even know are coming out on a given day. So the key is to like kind of, I think a lot of people believe that as you become more like powerful in an organization, it means you have more of a tight grip on things. And the lesson that I've really learned is that oftentimes power is about like letting go and kind of trusting people to be able to do their best work. And so that's kind of like the philosophy that we try to embody, which is, there are things at this point, I know, most things that are happening because I run a lot of stuff across the company, but even so, I don't necessarily stay like super close to what's going on with Jupiter Global or what's happening with JukeNet. And I just trust that, Xiang's got it over here, Meow's got it over here, or whatever else. And so that is the honest truth, is like the easiest way to coordinate is to like not overplan it and allow some of that chaos to come in. And the chaos is what makes things magical at times as well. But it requires a very high quality bar, and it requires hiring the right people, right? You can't make chaos work unless you trust all the people that are there to be productive in and amongst the chaos.
Like, are we basically getting free advisory while we interview? Learning how to run a proper company. I guess final follow-up from me. How do you guys decide what not to build? Because, within Solana, you guys are probably the most equipped to build anything. What do you guys not build?
Mostly we try to have like kind of core thematics and focus on those. So right now it's really about, of course, trading, which is like our bread and butter, earning yield, and then managing your assets and the kind of like your on-chain identity effectively. Anything that's outside of those scopes is kind of deprioritized. It doesn't mean we don't do it, but it won't necessarily get like the pressure that it might from, if it was kind of a part of those core thematics. We oftentimes evaluate things not on kind of current revenue potential, but future revenue potential. And we're mostly trying to be at the center of the asset issuer and asset owner universe. So things that are more likely to contribute to that are more likely to get prioritized and get investment and get resources, and things that are less likely don't as much. But we really believe that blockchains are for assets. They are about DeFi is the core use case of these things. And as a result, we want to kind of focus on the areas that really accelerate there. Of course, we look at revenue. Of course, we look at kind of like market sizing, competitors, et cetera. But oftentimes we try to stay a little bit more kind of like mission and strategy focused, as opposed to, for example, we don't write like business plans for different products. There's no like investment committee that's like strictly meets every week to decide what gets greenlighted, what gets shut down. It's not really like that. It's much more kind of like organic. And if you can make a good case and kind of build some allies within the organization who want to help you build it and who want to make it a priority, and then you can get approval from some of us to get some funding or whatever else, then you're able to run at full speed.
Sick.
Notes on how to build.
Awesome. Yeah, sorry, just thanks for all that advice. I mean, that's great. Yeah,
it's worth what you pay for, So we'll see how it actually goes for you. I think that like one key insight I've had. There's a book from Tolstoy, or there's a line in, I think it's War and Peace or Anna Karenina. There's a line from Tolstoy where he's like, all happy families are alike and all unhappy families are different in their own way. And I think that it's kind of like a lot of unsuccessful companies are the same. Like they oftentimes die from indigestion. Like they just try to do too much. They're trying to like overly control things. They're trying to progress according too much to a plan. And most successful companies are kind of successful in their own unique ways. And the way that Jupiter is successful, I don't know how replicable it is anywhere else. A lot of it comes down to like kind of the core DNA of the founders and so on. But yeah, you try it out, see what it is worth, and then report back. We'll do another episode of this in 6 months, and we'll see if any of this advice actually worked out for you guys.
Sounds good.
Absolutely.
Awesome. Perfect caveat to that, because in 6 months we'll probably have another watch that you might be curating, and probably some in between. I would love to see what.
Inshallah.
And you did mention that you're familiar with our partners as well from RiskCheck. So I was curious, what's the story behind that? How do you get in touch with them? And is there something that you can reveal? Maybe you guys are cooking something in the background that we don't know about with our partners.
I will say RiskCheck is actually one of the reasons I got into watches. Was they have some like guy on TikTok and I just watched like every single video that he had explaining how watches worked before I bought my first one. And so they're like a very critical part of my own watch journey. And I think that watches are incredible assets that people all around the world are very interested in. And I think blockchains are great for assets. And I think people should stay tuned, and they'll see something interesting hopefully in the near future.
So you would say specifically RiskCheck content, and that would be Peter, the watchmaker at RiskCheck, got you into watches?
He was one key part of the journey. Yeah, he kind of took me from being a complete idiot to being only somewhat of an idiot.
Okay.
It's okay. He's very good at making everyone feel like an idiot when it comes to watches.
Yeah, it's amazing how he could just talk about watches. You could really see the passion through him. Yeah. Every time we go to Hong Kong and he tells us something new, it's like never enough time to be with Peter to know about watches. So I'm guessing. So you mentioned not fully just Peter, and there was probably somebody else that brought you into watches. Who's that exactly?
Yeah, I will say on Peter, like, I've had the privilege of meeting like some very like famous people and not been fine. Peter, I think I'd be a little starstruck if I met him in person. Quite honestly, I'd get a little sweaty. I don't know if so yeah, hopefully I'll meet him someday. But outside of Peter, yeah. Oh, that'd be great. I mean, maybe, I don't know. Maybe you don't want to meet your heroes, just let it.
I mean, when you pick up your next watch, we'll fly over to Hong Kong together. You meet Peter.
Deal. All right, now I got to pick something up soon. But yeah, in addition to RiskCheck and Peter, and kind of like what got me down that rabbit hole in the first place, a lot of credit or blame, I think, is probably more appropriate. It goes to to Nick Chen and Seong over here on the Jupiter team. I walked into the office here in Singapore. I don't know, this must have been like 6 months ago, and they happened to be wearing the same clothes, just like by complete coincidence. They're wearing the same T-shirt and the same pants, and we were like kind of giggling. And they were like, "Oh, look!" And we're even wearing basically the same watch. And they both were wearing Patek World timers. And I was just like, what? I've never seen a watch like this. Like, what is this even? How does this work? Like, there's so many things on the dial and so on. And then from there, I ended up spending the next like hour with Nick, and he showed me like minute repeaters and just like all sorts of like the craziest tech in watches. And that was really the gateway drug, was A, being impressed by what they were talking about, and B, wanting to impress them back, because I was walking around with naked wrists like a chump. And I was like, I can't, that's embarrassing. These guys are wearing Patek Philippe and I got nothing. What am I trying to do? And so,
the gateway drug was Patek Philippe and minute repeaters. That is a very intense gateway drug.
Yeah, now in fairness, Nick doesn't have a minute repeater. He just showed me a video of somebody else's, but he was telling me that it's his kind of grail. And I mean, he's got like 25 watches or something like that. He's crazy. He's legitimately insane with it. But they were the reason that I kind of got in. And I mean, like even today, we are all here in the office in Singapore, and we, spent the entire lunch break just talking about different watches that we wanted to get, and how is the Kubitus and how's this and that, the other thing. So it's become a fun thing that kind of like brings us together a little bit more. It's like I mostly talk about work like all the time, and so it's very nice to have something that's not work related to talk about as well with some friends.
Did not know that the team was so watch pilled.
It's really just Nick and Seong. Actually, that's not true. Zachy over here, he's actually got a Wimbledon as well, I should say. A few of the folks here have some watches. But yeah, I'd say it's maybe like Thomas has got a nice sub, I think. Whitey's got like maybe 10 out of the 150 are like into watches.
What about Meow? Does Meow have a nice watch?
No, bro. Meow only until Uniqlo makes a watch, Meow will not wear a watch. That's the only thing that guy wears is Uniqlo. Like he travels in like a backpack with like 3 Uniqlo shirts, 2 Uniqlo shorts, and that's it. So yeah, he's not too deep in the game yet, but we'll see if I can't convince him. I might trick him into buying a watch or something at some point.
Maybe you could trick him into curating a watch with us.
that would be the greatest trick I've ever pulled if I could pull that one off. We'll see.
I think you just need to bring him to meet Peter, bring him to wrist check, and then Peter will just woo him all the way. I mean, that's
there we
the thing what happened with Zuckerberg, right? You had the Ambani guy show him all the watches, and now he's one of the biggest collections in the world.
That's right. We'll try it out.
So Kash, you've obviously spoken to James and Kaben as you've recently joined us as an advisor. I wasn't actually on that call, but I'd love to hear firsthand what interested you in the project specifically and why you wanted to become an advisor.
Well, I'll be honest, the initial kind of hook was just like the quality of the business model and understanding like the real problem that it solved. Like it really is kind of matching a few of my passions right now, which is like, it's Solana and watches kind of like coming together. That's great. Those are the two things that I spend all my time thinking about. So that was like the initial kind of hook that was interesting. But then it was after the call, and it was after like better understanding, James and Kaben, like they walked me through this whole world of like kind of watch lotteries and how it's like extremely hard to work, and PayPal shutting down accounts and the fees make it impossible to globalize. And it became really obvious to me that this was not just a fun project, but actually like a very valuable one where crypto can solve a real problem for real people in the real world. And there's not a lot of projects like that in this ecosystem, unfortunately, or in this space as a whole. And then obviously like James Cabin, not to, glaze you too much while I'm on the camera with you here, seem like very sharp guys. It seemed like their hearts were in the right place. I know you guys have had a few pivots, and I love to see that kind of like doggedness and that determinism to make sure that it would work. And then I did a few little reference checks, and it became pretty clear after that there was something that we could do that would be fun here. I think I said even in those early calls, like, hey, I love what you guys are doing. I think you guys are great. Advisor or no advisor, like, count me in. I want to be kind of like a part of this journey. And I'm very flattered and honored that you guys have me on board.
We're honored to have you.
For sure.
Yeah, glad to have you on, Kash. And then next, what kind of excites you most about the future of the platform?
I think that it's going to be a really important way that we can get a lot more people into the hobby. Obviously, crypto itself is quite a degen area. And so this speaks very well to the degens that want to have some fun and are looking for a little bit of an adrenaline hit. I think, crypto provides adrenaline as a service, as one of the primary exports. And I think like Watch.fun can do that as well. And then I'm really excited about how it goes the other way and how it takes like watch enthusiasts and bring them closer into crypto. So I think this is going to end up being like a really nice two-way kind of like bi-directional bridge, showing crypto people that it's not just about like flexing, but there's actually like some real stories to be told. There's real kind of sentimental value that can be found in these things. There's real artistry and a craft that must be appreciated. It's not just about like Hublot and RM, all due respect, but it's like there's a wide world of watches out there. And then on the other side, it can show people that, hey, this crypto thing that you see XYZ politicians using it as a scam, or as a grift, it actually can have some real value as well. It can actually make the types of things that you want to do in your daily life even better. And I think it's gonna, if things go the way that I think they're gonna go, I think it's gonna end up being a bit of a case study of how you can bring a new audience into crypto and how you can kind of create value for real people.
Absolutely. Speaking about case studies, obviously Collector Crypt, Fidgetals, some of these, Pokemon card, TCG platforms have been the top performing Solana protocols over the last sort of 2-3 months, or actually maybe even longer, the past 6 months to a year. And I think that this is really setting the stage for RWAs on Solana. And I think that it's a great case study for us to kind of look at and say, well, these guys are doing it with these collectible assets. There shouldn't really be a reason that we can't do it with watches. What are your thoughts on that kind of that case study, looking at like the Pokemon cards and all that blowing up? And do you think that's a good segue for us to kind of build on top of?
Absolutely. I think Pokemon cards have the benefit of being kind of affordable enough for a wide swath of people to get into at the same time. But I think watches are kind of like the next level up, right? You're going from, all due respect to Pokemon card holders, but you're going from kind of like junior varsity to varsity, right? It's a bit of a different kind of game. And I think as I look at the increasing wealth inequalities, I think like about how there's asset inflation all around the world and more capital than ever. And with AI, obviously the power of capital to continue to grow only further increases. I think a lot of that capital is going to be looking for objects that can tell a story and that can kind of preserve some value and add some diversification to a portfolio, in addition to being, just like fun to talk about and to look at. And so my like pretty strong hunch is that watches as an asset class are going to continue to grow from here. I don't know if the price is going to be up in 6 days, 6 months, 6 years, but I do know that like there's more energy than ever. Like as a newfound kind of watch enthusiast myself, I can tell you I'm like a living proof of this. And I think that all assets are going to end up on blockchains. And I think that watches are a very high quality asset. There's already a lot of good fit between crypto and the watch industry. And if you cannot buy watches on chain, something's gone wrong. And critically, can you start to use them as collateral and get loans against them? Where you can actually start to, a lot of folks have large watch collections where they're not really wearing 8 out of their 10 watches on a daily basis. What are the things you can do to kind of turn those into something a little bit more liquid that enable people to fund their lifestyles or buy more watches or whatever else it is in ways that no traditional financial organization ever could? That is going to happen on Solana. I can promise you that.
Absolutely. I love that. Since starting at Watch.fun, my watch journey has also really started, and I'm learning a lot more about them every day. Funny story, I've got my fake Rolex here from Hong Kong when I was about 17 or 18 years old. My dad took me into this dodgy kind of back alley, and we went up into this room, and he bought me this as I think it was like an 18th birthday present or something. So I still need to get my first proper real watch. Maybe I will at some point in the next year or so. Yeah, if someone in your kind of audience or your kind of inner circle was about to buy their first serious watch, what's one piece of advice you would give to them or to me?
I think go slow would be my advice, right? You want to build an appetite before you just gorge and start to go and eat. And I think that the more kind of research you can do, the more you can learn about what you like, what you don't like, the more of your friends' watches you try on, the more shops you kind of go to, the better. Watch shopping, or at least in my limited experience, is not necessarily like shopping for clothes, where like you kind of walk in and you assume that you're walking out with something that you can put on your back. A lot of the joy of it is like the slow pace and debating it with your friends or your wife or whatever, and then spending all day. Like I have a Google Photos album that has like 80 or 90 photos in it that I'm just like constantly scrolling through and like, oh, today I like this one, or maybe I like that one, or maybe there's, And so I think that don't rush it, right? Like good sex, buying a watch, the journey is more important than just the destination, And so I would say take your time, and you'll have a lot more fun with it.
I would say just avoid the Vacheron boutique. That's a big rabbit hole. All the different types of overseas for me, oh God, it's never ending. There's always something more to get.
That might be some of the best advice I've heard on how to get a watch. Because once people who are deeply in this space, when you ask them that question, they kind of inevitably go to like the lowest hanging fruit answers, like just buy what you love, right? And that's what a lot of people say, and it's true, which is why it's probably why so many people say it. But then a lot of people go into like pricing and like what brands, and they kind of immediately throw them into this like structure of how the watch world kind of does actually work. So yeah, going slow and like slowly, as you were saying that, I actually thought about this like gym influencer who like talks to kids about like how to go to the gym and get big. And nowadays kids always just want to like take a bunch of drugs and get huge super fast. And he's like, dude, just go and lift weights first and like enjoy yourself. Stop trying to like get so big. And yours is like the watch equivalent of that. It was weird to hear that.
Yeah, I think that people like, at the end of the day, like especially collecting watches, it does not have to be expensive, right? There are good, very interesting, affordable watches that are out there, but it is a luxury, right? Like let's not joke ourselves. Like, you know, my phone tells the time as well. I'm not like only buying this for its functional use case, although there are tool watches that maybe can be accepted there, but it's a luxury. Enjoy it as such, you know, luxuriate in the process. And I think that oftentimes especially people who are not necessarily like into art or cuisine, or if it's one of the first kind of like aesthetic hobbies that you're getting into, it can be easy to treat it like any other hobby, where like, okay, I'm going to try and, you know, lift as many weights as possible, or I want to cook the best dish I can, or whatever else. But instead, like the pleasure is in savoring the flavor, not necessarily in finishing the bite.
For sure. So what does the current collection look like?
The collection is limited, I will say. I am going slow myself. I'm taking my own advice on this one. So I have like I think I have like 7 watches at this point, but of those, 3 or 4 of them are like just Instagram watches that I bought at like 2 a.m. for like $80. That were garbage. Mostly don't buy Instagram watches. That is one other piece of advice that I have for you, is that don't get lured in by the ads between reels, as I have. I'm a sucker for that kind of stuff. But the real kind of like watches that I really enjoy, I have an Omega Constellation that was actually a gift from my father-in-law when I got married, that I really love. It doesn't hold the best time anymore, but it is very sentimentally valuable to me. I have a Rolex date, a Rolex, what is it called? Not a date.
OP, I think.
OP, thank you. Yes, I have a Rolex OP. You know my collection better than I do. So yeah, I have the Omega Constellation. I have the Rolex OP that my dad gave me. I have a Cartier Santos with the Arabic dial, the green dial, which I think is my most kind of striking piece. And then I have this one right here, which is the Rolex Wimbledon on the Jubilee bracelet with the fluted bezel as well.
So you mentioned there's like always a story. It seems like you have a story. The Omega came from your father-in-law. What about the other watches that you got? Besides the ones that you bought on Instagram, I'm guessing not too much of a story there, more of a sell. But
the story was too many drinks and not enough discretion, I think. The Rolex for my dad is probably the most sentimental of the pieces, if I'm being honest. He bought it when I must have been, I don't know, 12 or something like that. And he bought it I remember very clearly, he bought it at London Heathrow in the airport on a trip we were taking back from somewhere. And it was the first moment that I really felt like my dad had kind of like made it, you know, like he kind of like made something of himself. I was very impressed. My brother and I both were like, oh shit, he's buying a Rolex. We didn't know what the fuck a Rolex really was. We just like heard about it in a movie or something. But it was like, yeah, I always respected my dad, obviously, but my understanding of my dad's position in the world kind of changed irrevocably that day. And it's so funny now because like looking back on it, you know, it's like a $3,000 watch or something, which is obviously not a trivial amount of money, but compare it to, you know, watches that we've been talking about here, it's, you know, very, very small. But it's like the power of the watch as a symbol that was really seductive, I think, at the time. And so when he gave that to me, you know, about a year ago, it was a very special moment, I would say. So that one was great. The Cartier Santos was the kind of first watch that I got into. It was the first watch I bought for myself. And that was kind of celebratory for moving to Dubai. So I wanted to get the Arabic dial. And I just walked into the store with my wife. I had no real intentions of buying it. You know, I was trying on a bunch of other Cartiers, and then we were going to go to the Patek store and stuff. And she was very impressed by it. And that's what kind of sealed the deal. And now I travel a lot, and I love to take it with me when I travel because it reminds me of home. And it's always going to be close to my heart for that reason. And then I suppose that leaves the Rolex Wimbledon, which is special because it's the first kind of like major milestone watch that I bought. And it was the first watch that my wife was really seduced by. When I say go slow, I've been looking at watches for a little while, and I'd shown her all these like kind of crazy things, like, you know, I was into like the Christopher Ward Bel Canto, for example, or, you know, whatever, like these other kind of fancy looking watches. And I was just like, for the 100th time, taking her through my Google Photos album, like, what if I get this? What if I get this? And the Rolex Wimbledon was the first time, I think, where she was like, stop, looked at it, was really like, now this watch is actual class. This is like the right level of sophistication and flash and quality. And, you know, it really just like kind of caught her eye. And that was very important for me. So when I completed my first year at Jupiter, I decided I was going to buy myself, you know, a nice watch. And that is when the Rolex kind of came onto my wrist. So it's one of the things I love about watches. You know, there's no better way to kind of preserve a moment in time than to buy something timeless, like a watch, right? And so it means a lot to me because of what it represents. Like the first year of Jupiter is like one of the hardest things I've ever done, quite honestly. And so like I remember that and I feel that. And, you know, I love the way it looks, and it makes me think of my wife, who I also love very deeply.
I see. It seems like the Cartier was also your wife, and the Wimbledon was your wife. And then I'm curious later what the next one will be.
Here's advice number 3: just always listen to your wife. If you have a wife, just get her opinion. I will not buy something that she thinks is ugly, I don't think.
Oh, does that mean that she's approved of the 5712?
She has approved of 5712. Yeah, now that's she has not approved of the price tag yet. She's approved of the aesthetics, I would say. Yeah, so I gotta do a little more work on that side.
So starting off, guys, we're moving on to the curation section of Watch Talk. For those of you who don't know how the curator process works, each of our curators will select a watch that means something to them. Kash has obviously already spoken to this. We will then drop that watch on Watch.fun for our community to win. Our curators are handpicked industry leaders from both the crypto world and the watch world. So obviously, we got Kash on this week. We had Elton on last week, where, as Kash mentioned earlier, kind of merging these two worlds and bringing titans from both sides across, and giving them the opportunity to share their watch story with us, and handpick a watch that'll be dropped on our platform. So Kash, to just kind of go over this again, which watch have you curated for us? And could you tell us a little bit about it and why it's special to you?
Yeah, I am extremely excited to curate the Rolex Wimbledon Datejust on the Jubilee bracelet with the fluted bezel. As you can see, I'm wearing it right now. This watch means a lot to me. It was the kind of first major milestone watch that I bought. I bought it after I completed about a year at Jupiter and felt like I had just survived one of the hardest challenges I'd been a part of. And so it means a lot to me from that perspective. It was also the first watch that my wife thought looked good. So it kind of checks both boxes, where impresses the wife and reminds me of something really challenging. And let's just be honest, man, it just looks so sexy. I cannot tell you how many compliments I get on this watch. I think it's a great watch as like your first, second, third kind of watch as well, because it's unique and differentiated enough, right? It doesn't look exactly like everything that everyone else has, but it's got some real kind of like elegance and refinement to it as well. You know, the little green Roman numerals, obviously the date and the date bubble, but nothing catches the eye like that fluted bezel on the Jubilee. I think it's just like the most attractive combination you can have on a watch, quite honestly. And so really excited for whoever gets this. I can promise you the girls or boys will throw themselves at you. All the success in the world will find its way to you. You know, people will stop in the street and just, you know, touch your feet if you're not careful. Your whole life will change once you put this on the wrist.
Goodness. All right. Well, I guess I better get one of those. I need some touching.
It has a lot more power than I knew it had.
I'm going to throw it over to James then. James, can you walk us through the exact Datejust that Kash has curated for us? Give us a little demonstration and tell us a bit more about the specific model.
Yeah, well, I mean, we have it here with us today. We actually spoke with Kash on curating this and why this would be special for him. First, you've already heard the story directly from Kash. Now, there is a slight difference because when we were speaking with Kash, he has the steel white gold bezel version. And in our conversation, I actually asked you, Kash, I was like, should we do the steel white gold version or should we do the rose gold? I personally am a huge fan of the rose gold model. It just, you guys are going to struggle to see it here, but we'll cut it in. It just really stands out. I know you mentioned that you're a huge fan of the rose gold model as well. The actual reference here is a 126331. 41, I think, just like yours, 41. Same green dials with that green, same green numerals with that gray, like ashy face. It's actually the reason why they call this the Wimbledon is because Rolex is the official, I think, official timekeeping partner is what it's called, or basically the official partner of Wimbledon. And I think Roger Federer was the ambassador, and he was wearing this, and actually wore it in multiple tennis games. So this is why this is now referred to as the Wimbledon. But yeah, it comes in either rose gold, yellow gold, and then the model that Kash has on that he showed. And we felt if we're going to drop something, why don't we drop something that's a little bit different, but something that Kash still personally likes as well. So it's going to be this Ever Rose, or what Rolex likes to call Roller, which is how they basically define their two-tone color. So this is rose gold stainless steel. So I think it's like the hand markers, hour marker, minute marker, the bezel, and then the bracelet on this one is rose gold. It's a beautiful watch. We're going to cut a bunch of the images into this video as well, so you guys will be able to see the actual watch, not just some stock one, but this actual watch in this video.
Yeah. It is a thing of beauty. And I will say to anyone watching, I have relatively small wrists, I will say. But and so they make a 36 millimeter version of this watch as well. And I tried both on, and credit to my boy Nick, who helped kind of push me in the direction. I think for most people, even if you have small wrists, the 41 is the way to go. It's a real showstopper when you pull it out. And because it's on the Jubilee, it's ridiculously comfortable. Like you can wear this all day without any kind of like wear and tear or any kind of feeling on the wrist.
Does yours, so the Jubilee is actually changed. I'm wearing a Datejust here as well, also on a Jubilee band. And they've gone through a few iterations of the clasp. Is yours the crown clasp, or is it is it more like this? This is the 126, and they changed it so it's got the buckle now here, or does yours just have the crown?
Mine has the crown on it over here. I got this.
Yeah, so there's the other Datejust that don't have this buckle. So yours is actually very similar to this. So it's also up by a 126. And that one actually I really liked. It was my old Rolex model. Is I dropped that one. I raffled it off, so that one's gone now. But that one I really like because it doesn't scratch that much. When they went back to this, I was kind of confused. Like, oh, why did they go back to the old class, which is what this one my dad gave me. When you put your hand, when you're typing on a keyboard or whatever, it can scratch the table. The other model that they have, it never scratched at all. Because my favorite thing about the Jubilee band, it doesn't scratch easily. The Oyster bands, those scratch. So, but then when I will say, back to this,
one other thing that I didn't know that they did, I only learned this recently. This is probably obvious to you guys and a lot of people who are watching this, but you can also get like condoms for your watch, or at least they do that here in Singapore. So in addition to the watch itself being like, quite durable, unlike my Santos, which is like a scratch magnet, I will say, there's actually like this very thin film that's been put onto it to kind of protect it against scratches. And I think it costs like $100 or something like that, or maybe 200, but excellent investment. Highly recommend to anyone who's getting this watch, or really any other watch that you're getting, if you want to kind of preserve that quality into the future.
Yeah. Well, shout out to some company there's a lot of companies that do that, and Kash is promoting the Singaporean ones out there. Actually, I don't think it's as needed for the Jubilee band, but it's painful when you're like, you move your hand and you knock your watch against the table. That always, I'm like, oh.
Yeah. Takes my breath away every time. Yeah, I actually don't have it on the band. I have it only on the dial itself.
Okay. Actually, speaking of the wrist thing, so this is the old 36. This is the 41. What I'll do is we'll get on screen. I'll put them both side by side so everyone can see how they fit on the wrist. 41 sounds intimidating. It sounds bigger, but I have really skinny wrists also. So everyone will be able to see exactly how it'll fit on the wrist relative to the older 36 models. All right, let's see. That's really basically everything about the watch. I don't think I have any other comments on the watch other than that it's beautiful, and it has additional attributes that I was not aware of that Kash mentioned. So definitely get that for all the boys and the girls and all the other extra benefits that you get from wearing the Datejust.
Awesome. Well, one last one for me, Kash, on the Datejust. When the winner of the Datejust or the Wimbledon unboxes this watch from the drop, what do you want them to feel in that moment when they get it?
Oh, I want it to feel like, in Pulp Fiction, when Samuel L. Jackson opens up the briefcase and the golden light comes in, kind of hits his face.
Yes.
That's how it should feel. It should feel like a quasi-religious moment, because
Love it.
you're now acquiring something that you're going to have for the rest of your life. And if you treat it right, you'll be passing it down along the generations as well. And I think that it's a special moment when that kind of enters the collection, hopefully never to leave. I mean, surely mine is never leaving my collection.
Fantastic, man. All right, well, we're moving on to the closing thoughts and kind of final section of the show for today. We've got a couple more exciting questions to ask you, Kash, before we wrap. First one, who in Solana right now deserves way more attention than they're getting?
Meow,
This could be-
running around the back of the screen right now. No, who deserves more attention than they're currently getting?
Can be a project or an individual. It doesn't have to be specifically.
Is it too
locked
biased
in.
to say Watch.fun? Is that an acceptable answer?
That's
Of course,
an
that is
acceptable answer.
definitely an acceptable answer.
Yeah,
I will accept that answer.
I'll say the homies,
we'll take it.
I'll say the homies over here.
Fantastic.
Watch.fun.
Let's go, man. Right, and you have more insight than most people in the ecosystem. What prediction would you make for Solana over the next 12 months? And this doesn't have to be specific to price action, obviously not financial advice or anything. It can be anything Solana related. What would be a prediction you would make over the next 12 months that will come to light?
I think people are not fully appreciating how big of an upgrade Alpenglow is going to be. Alpenglow is like a consensus upgrade that's happening at the base layer, and it's going to not just increase the time of block times themselves, but also increase finality by quite a lot, where finality would happen basically every block, every, call it 200 milliseconds or so. And that's a gigantic change, especially for market makers, institutional flows, people who trade for real. Those kind of guarantees that your transactions are going to be there and cannot be rolled back, and having those guarantees on a literal millisecond kind of scale completely changes the trading environment. And I think it's going to start to change the types of applications that are able to succeed on chain. When you talk to Toli or Raj, they've been very consistent about this. They were building for the future, right? They were building things that were hard on current technical kind of hardware, but would get easier over time. And we're really starting to kind of reach that point where we're seeing the rest of the world kind of catch up. And so this new algorithm that they're putting out there, this new mechanism, I should say, in Alpenglow, I think is a very big deal that not enough people are talking about.
Actually,
Absolutely.
I have a follow-on question I want to ask about this. So X newsfeed changes every other week, but I think last week was when all the perp battles came out, and obviously Totally was shilling Phoenix. And now it's changed a little bit. Now I've noticed on my X feed at least, the conversation has shifted more to spot and how important spot is. I'm curious on your view. I mean, Jupiter offers both perps and spot. Where do you feel, without stepping on any toes or offending anybody here, what is your personal view between the importance of spot, of perps, and Solana's ability to manage either of these?
I think that both are essential in a sense. Perps is a much better business. Even now for Jupiter at our scale, we did, I want to say, about $540 million in gross revenue last year. And the lion's share of that came from perps. So it is by far the best business model that exists in crypto. And so from a perspective of having like businesses with real longevity, perps is a really important kind of asset type to be able to win on. So I understand the focus there. But ultimately, I think that things kind of start with spot oftentimes, and certainly a lot of the kind of practical implications for the world and tokenizing of assets and RWAs, but also kind of interesting kind of new tokens that have not even been thought up yet, happens at the spot level. I think already, you see if you trade on Jupiter, oftentimes for like the Sol USDC pair, you can get better pricing on Jupiter than you can get on Binance, which is, at least notionally supposed to be the deepest market in the world. And so we've already kind of crushed on spot. That is going to continue. Shout out to Sunrise and some of the other partners that are out there bringing more assets to the chain. But I think perps is indeed, that is where Solana is lagging. There's no other way to say it. Jupiter perps is, the number one perp spot on Solana by fees right now. And that's really the thing to look at, honestly. And it's still, a tiny, tiny fraction of like Hyperliquid or some of the other ones who are really crushing. So there's clearly some stuff that can be done, whether it's on Solana or adjacent to Solana or by Solana teams in kind of new fashions. That remains to be seen. Can the base layer support it, or do you need to kind of have these other ways around it? But I know the builders in the ecosystem are not going to stop, because the business opportunity is just too large to kind of overlook.
Awesome.
Cool. And then Kash, tell me, what are you most excited about that's on the Jupiter horizon right now? Obviously, you guys are continuously bringing out cool new shit. And what can you tell us without telling us too much about like what you're most excited about in the next coming months?
I am extremely excited about the future of credit and yield on Jupiter. Oftentimes people think that trading is kind of like all you can do on chain, but the truth is the total addressable market for savings and for yield is much, much larger than it is of trading, right? There's many more people who have savings accounts than have brokerage accounts, for example. And savings and yield generation more broadly is the kind of activity that basically every person on the planet is interested in. There's not a person out there who's like, I just want my money to sit there and not earn any yield. And in Jupiter, we're really building towards this in a big way. We are the only team, to my knowledge, that has both an extremely deep pool-based model. Jupiter Lend just crossed $2 billion in total supply, extremely deep variable rate market. And on top of that, we have the fixed rate, fixed term protocol offer book that we just launched into public beta last week. And I think the magic is going to happen when you put those two things together. When you have the ability via Vault to be able to create all sorts of liquidity that at rest can always earn the variable rate. And if there's a higher yielding fixed rate opportunity on top, the liquidity can be transitioned into that really seamlessly. Fixed rate is how this industry scales. If you look at the real world, variable rate is responsible for, 1 or 2% of like the total kind of credit markets that exist. Almost everything is fixed because you need fixed rates in order to have predictability for businesses, for people, for traders, et cetera. And so I'm really excited about what we're going to be able to do on the fixed rate side and how it blends in with the work that we've done with Jupiter Lend so far. We will be the #1 destination for yield before the end of the year. And so keep an eye out because we have a lot of very exciting things shipping.
Well, you heard it here first, folks. And tell me, Kash, most people watching this will likely already know, but where can people find you and where can people find Jupiter in terms of like socials and stuff? Where is the best place to kind of connect with you?
For me, it is for better or for worse on Twitter. So I'm at Kash Dhanda, my name on there. I tweet not very well, but I do it a lot. And, quantity has a quality all of its own, I would say.
Well, I like that.
I think that's a line from Napoleon, if I'm not mistaken. And then for Jupiter, just go to jupe.ag. Definitely get the Chrome extension wallet if you're on web, or get Jupiter Mobile, which is just by far the best mobile kind of crypto super app that's out there. You can do everything from prediction markets to trading to earning yield and much, much more all in one place.
Fantastic.
Well, thank you very
much.
Quickly on the wallet, we had a play test internally again the other day. And we have some team members that are not crypto native. They're more from the game design world. And product feature that surprised them the most, because a lot of people who are in crypto, they've heard about gas, they don't really know what it is. Jupiter Wallet is already helping because of the gasless stuff. People are able to send money into Watch.fun, use our product without having Solana. And that is like magical to them. And even for us, like, oh wait, we don't have to top up wallets anymore. Yeah. They can do gasless. So I actually like the product and its ability to help the ecosystem. And now we don't have to explain to some random or some guy from the watch world who doesn't know crypto, like, by the way, first you need to get Solana so you can pay for your gas, and then you can move your USDC or USDT onto Watch.fun. They're not doing any of that. They can just easily on-ramp, and then once they have it, they send it in. They have tickets just like that. So the tools help the ecosystem so that we can actually build better products. In case you guys aren't aware of it.
No, that is fantastic feedback to hear. Indeed, I think we really try intentionally to build not just for the users of today, but for the users of tomorrow. It is our view that this industry is still fucking tiny and has another 10 to 100x in it if we really want to have an impact at scale the way that we think we could. And so we have to build for the types of users who don't even know what gas is. It does make the advertising tough because like telling someone it's gasless when they don't know what gas is tricky. But I'm glad that you were able to appreciate it, without us kind of slamming it in people's faces.
Yeah.
All right. Fantastic. Well, Kash, big thank you for joining us today. It's been excellent having you on and getting to know you a little bit better. Appreciated the follow back on X, by the way. I saw you followed me about a week ago. So thank you very much for that, sir. For those of you who are watching who would like to be in the running for Kash's Rolex date just drop on Watch.fun, grab yourself some ticket packs, follow us on X or join us on Telegram to be notified when the drop goes live. You can get up to 30% off tickets if you buy pre-launch. All tickets bought will also enter you into the running to win a Rolex Starbucks Submariner. So definitely head over to the platform. Launch is just around the corner, so be sure to grab yourself some tickets before we go live and get that nice juicy discount. Yeah, and shout out to James and Caben, of course, for putting aside the time to be here today. And love the backdrop, boys. Looking good.
Thank you. Team worked hard. Team worked hard. Thanks, Kash, for your time. Appreciate it.
Thank you very much, Kash.
Fantastic.
I appreciate you coming on as an advisor and helping us.
It's going to be a lot of fun.
Awesome. All right, everyone.
Thank you all.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.